Latch-Key Dads presents The Dangers of Trick-or-Treating in This New Millennia.
Hey guys, how was your trick-or-treating? How'd it go last night?
Not too bad, Charles. Mackenzie, what did you go as?
I was gonna go as this awesome killer clown, but my mom told me that I shouldn't glorify violence, so I was a library book. What about you?
Well, Mackenzie, I was going to go as a nerd, but my mom reminded me that 20% of kids between the ages of 12 and 18 experience bullying, according to the government website Stop Bullying, with many citing exclusion, name-calling, and aggression. She said we can do better than that, so I went as a houseplant.
I was gonna go as Maui from Moana, but my mom said it is wrong to appropriate tribal tattoos, so I went as a pumpkin. How about you, Katniss?
I was gonna go as a hobo, but my mom said that I should know better, as the homelessness crisis worsens in this country, affecting many children worst of all. It is not something we can take lightly anymore, so I went as the Morton Salt Girl.
Well, at least we got candy. What did you get?
I got a silly straw, a fig bar, and some wiki sticks.
I got some local raw honey, plastic spider rings, and natural fruit leather. I got yogurt, raisins, fruit snacks, and pretzels.
I got some colored pencils, an organic juice box, a granola bar, and a rock. Man, this holiday sucks.
What's that, Charles?
Dad, I said, I always thought this holiday was about as much fun as getting a bag of rocks.
It's time for the Halloween party!
Man, I love Halloween, Tim. You a big Halloween fan?
Oh yeah, Halloween's awesome.
It really is. Between the candy, the costumes. Did I mention the candy?
Yeah.
I'm a big candy fan, chocolate mostly. But the only thing negative with Halloween is how these candy companies keep making smaller and smaller packaging. Have you noticed this?
Yeah, it's crazy.
When I was a little kid, they came out with the snack size, which was about the third of a candy bar. That's all right.
Yeah.
You still tried to find the houses with the full-size candy bars, but all right. But then came the fun size, and there's nothing fun about that. Now they have, like, the minis, right? They're like, at the mini level, it's almost like, why bother? Right? Half of a bite, right? If you're handing minis out at Halloween night, your house deserves to get toilet paper. That's all I'm saying. I got three Milk Duds in a box. Yeah. Quite frankly, I find it insulting. I'm waiting for the newest size called Cheap Bastard. It's got one M&M in it. Well, it's almost Halloween. And with Halloween comes those great cartoon specials.
Yeah, it's always fun to relive those specials from when we were kids, and I'm sure our kids have their favorites. I feel like a lot of them are still the ones that we grew up with. They've made new ones, but I don't feel like they've stuck. The same way. Yeah. You have any that were your favorites?
I mean, obviously the big one is it's Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. That seems to be the one that I like that one better than the whatever the Christmas special was called. I don't quite remember the name of that one.
Oh, yeah. I think it's just called It's Christmas, Charlie Brown. Or something.
Yeah.
I should know. I mean, I've seen it a million times. But
Well, did you know that the creator, Charles Schulz, hated the name Peanuts?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was just kind of, when he came up with the comic strip, they said, you need a name. And some editor suggested it. And he's like, yeah, whatever. And then he had grown to absolutely hate it, which is why none of the cartoon specials are called Peanuts. It's Charlie Brown something or other.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, and I think, the thing that's I always find interesting whenever I go back and watch any of these specials, it's like the tone towards the main character. It's always like they're just getting beat up through the entire and the Halloween special is no different, where Charlie Brown is just he just can't win.
Such a jerk.
He just can't win. I often think like, has anyone in history ever gotten a rock as a as a treat for Halloween? I got a rock.
Which made you love him, right? You felt bad for him, so you kind of gravitated towards Charlie Brown just because of his bad luck. Yeah. But definitely Snoopy was the best part of all of that, right? Yeah. I mean, with the
Red Baron.
The Red Baron. Yeah. That was the best part. And then there's Linus sitting in the pumpkin patch.
Yeah. And Sally just so wants to be, with him, and he's just, totally clueless. And worried about that great pumpkin. That's funny.
That one holds up. Yeah. I think that one's still pretty good for kids. Other than, I know that when we first showed it to the kids, my wife was like, "They're not very nice to Charlie Brown, kids. You shouldn't be." Like, it was like a learning moment. I'm like,
yeah, but to that point, I mean, even in like Rudolph, it's the same thing. Where I mean, Rudolph is just abused, and Hermie, the elf, like they just berate him.
It's kind of like a theme, like when we talked about the Monster Squad movie, how they were so mean to Horace. Yeah. Like it was okay to berate people back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember any other classic Halloween specials?
I mean, I know the Simpsons. At some point when they started making their Treehouse of Horror, I mean that kind of became something I'd always want to see. But obviously they didn't just show the same one; they would change it each year, which is always fun and bizarre.
They're so good.
Yeah.
Like there's just so many. I used to be an absolute huge Simpsons fan, and the Halloween special, or the Treehouse of Horror as it's called, was always the highlight of the season in my opinion. I loved it.
Yeah. I mean, offhand, there's a lot of them that I thought were great. That over time, I haven't gone back and watched them though to the same level.
Oh no.
Like the Peanuts, I've gone back and watched that one, but I haven't cataloged the Treehouse of Horror in the same way. Have you gone back and watched them a bunch of times? Or
I think it was during the pandemic. We had gotten Disney Plus.
Oh, okay.
And William, we never really watched The Simpsons, and then because that became part of it, William especially was like, "Oh, what's Simpsons?" And we started watching it, and I'm like, "Let's watch the Treehouse of Horror. Those are the best."
Yeah. The one I think that I think of the most is the one where it was the Poltergeist episode where I think they ended up kind of playing it off like that the house was built on an Indian graveyard or something like that.
Yeah.
All this crazy stuff was happening.
They were always so great with their like bizarre one-liners, and there's just one that always sticks in my head. It was the one where I think it was a combination. It was when Flanders is the werewolf or something like that, but it was like also like I know what you did, and Homer's coming around the corner, and Marge says to him like, "Oh, it's so dark out. You forgot to while they're driving. Why didn't you install the fog lights?" And so Homer sings, "Guess I forgot to put the fog lights in," like out of nowhere, just this random honeycombs, right? Remember that? And as he comes around the corner singing the song, Flanders is walking and he totally kills him.
Mows him down.
Yeah.
Such great writing by
it was
I don't know how much of it is Matt versus the other writers and stuff. Like at that point I don't even know how much he was involved, but
I know. Yeah. I know that Conan O'Brien was a writer
that's
for The Simpsons for a while, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Any other ones that stick out for you?
There was the newer one that I can't stand, which the kids watched when it's for little kids, but Spookly the Square Pumpkin.
Yeah, I don't remember that one. We must have avoided that one.
Be happy you avoided that one. It's just exactly what you think it would be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I know there was a bunch of other ones that were made. I think there was a Toy Story one. Did you ever see that?
That one's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's well done. The Toy Story, what is it, like of Terror or something like that? I think it is. Yeah. And that's a pretty good one. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
Anything Toy Story is usually spot on with their humor and everything.
Yeah.
I always remember the old one, and I haven't seen it. I tried to find it. I couldn't find it, but it was the Fat Albert Halloween special. Mm-hmm. Something about Fat Albert. I love Fat Albert as a kid. Just like the cool gang with the weird look and stuff.
Yeah, I know we probably watched it too, but as far as seeing it anytime recently, I can't recall. Even the details of it are pretty gray.
Yeah.
I don't remember too much about it. Is there anything specifically that sticks out?
I don't. I mean, it's funny. I just remember like always looking forward to it when it was on.
Yeah.
But I was a big Fat Albert fan, so I would kind of go along with it.
Yeah. I think there was I think I've mentioned before, my brother would collect Garfields and things like that, so we would always watch the specials, and there's a Garfield one for the holidays as well. So
Of course there is.
yeah. But again, like the specifics of it are things that really, stuck with me. There's nothing particular about that one that,
yeah.
And I never dug it up to try to, show it to the kids or anything. Do you
No.
remember your
Yeah.
kids seeing that one?
No. The one I did when we came up with the list. The one that I do remember was the Bugs Bunny Halloween, and I think it was a bunch of shorts. Each character got the thing. The one I remember, of course, was Bugs Bunny and the Witch. Yeah, which it was not. Oh, I think it was played regardless of whether it was Halloween or not. So I always liked the Bugs Bunny.
I saw on the list you had said there was a Pac-Man one. Did you see that?
I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it existed. But I saw it on the list. I looked at it, I'm like, oh yeah, it actually was a thing.
Yeah.
But
well, I think there was a Saturday morning Pac-Man cartoon that I do remember watching.
I do remember that.
Yeah, but I must have missed the Halloween special. But I think the other thing too is growing up, like it was on a specific night at a specific time, and if you missed it, that was that was it.
Too bad, so sad.
Yeah, and maybe it was one of those that for whatever reason we had other stuff going on the few years that it ran, and just never saw it. So,
and for all I know, I mean, with a little bit of research I did, there could have been other Halloween specials that we just weren't aware of. That you just happen to miss.
Yeah. I'm curious if there was a California Raisins one, because there was a California Raisins Christmas special.
That's right, there was.
And I know my mom, she VHS recorded that one, and it's still floating around that my parents have it, and you cannot find that one anywhere. Like,
really?
It is it's been wiped from history, it seems like. So if there was a Halloween one, I'm sure we'd have a hard time finding it. So,
yeah. Oh, that's too funny. Yeah. But and I know that like there's a lot of like DreamWorks, much like the Toy Story of Terror. Mm-hmm. Like I think there's a Shrek Halloween one, and what's that dragon? Not Imagine Dragons. that
How to Train Your Dragon.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think there are other types of specials floating out there. I don't know if they're Halloween or Christmas, but I think they're more.
Well, and I think with Netflix and Hulu and like every one of the streaming services now, it's like if they can capture a little bit of an audience with a special, they just crank them out.
They're gonna do it. So. Yeah.
So Greg, I remember, being a kid, that, excitement of going trick-or-treating.
Oh, yeah.
And like we grew up, as I mentioned before, it was pretty rural, a lot of farmland. And so we had just a few houses that when I was really little, we'd walk pretty far and, we'd only hit maybe half a dozen houses. But then when I was, I'll say 13, one of my best friends lived in a development. And so that's when I got the true experience of what it was like to trick or treat and just have a ton of houses.
A full bag.
Yeah. And so probably the most memorable was when I think I was 13, and we slept over at his house. So it was like a full night of hitting all these houses, getting this excessive amount of candy. And his mom had made cupcakes and all these other sweets, on top of the experience of going out and getting all the candy. And that was probably the first time I watched a horror movie
ever.
Yeah, I mean, I know I probably had seen bits and pieces of
Sure.
movies, but that was like the first time like we sat down and we watched a scary movie. And it was hysterical because I'm pretty sure like 3 out of the 4 of us were not on board with watching this movie. That I like going back and looking at it. It was a movie called Hide and Go Shriek, which was rated R.
Ooh.
And so, the description of it is really ridiculous. It's just a bunch of kids who like try to spend the night in a department store, and then some like psycho comes in and starts picking them off one by one.
Very typical.
Yeah. So that whole thing of watching this scary movie and then like, okay, I'm gonna sleep after that was like, we're not. I don't think we slept at all. I think we just came up with reasons to goof around all night long because nobody wanted to go to sleep. So how about you? Do you remember any, stories of Halloween related, whatever?
Not when I was a kid. I know that Halloween was such a big buildup. It was always like, oh, I can't wait. I'm going to get a costume. I'm going to, go get so much candy with my friends. But I think looking back, it was pretty pale in comparison.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times, I found it interesting when I grew up in New Jersey. Halloween night from where I grew up was always October 31st when you would go trick-or-treating. But it's kind of neat here in Pennsylvania. They'll have trick-or-treating on a designated night, not the 31st. So it's not a school night.
Yeah.
So many of my Halloweens were on a school night, and parents would be, you got to be back, and the people would close their turn their lights off pretty early. The only thing I could think of that was a lot of fun, and I have a feeling a lot of kids did this, but every year you'd get your costume, and whether it was handmade or purchased those horrible plastic masks with the string that would break and all of that. But you would kind of collect them in a bag. And so one year I said to my best friend who lived across the street, I said, yo, what if we went out multiple times? We'll go out once. We'll find out where all the good candy is. We'll come back to my house. We'll change into costumes and go out again. And he thought it was like genius, right? And so we went out like 3 or 4 times in different costumes, just hitting the really good houses at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, we did the same thing. I mean, after that first year of, being in the development, it was sort of a tradition then that the 3 or 4, I think it was maybe 4 or 5 of us would get together at this one kid's house. And, we did the same thing the one year. We went in and pulled down all the old costumes from their attic, and we had a bunch of them, and we hit the best houses multiple times.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it just made sense. You're wearing a mask. No one's going to know.
Yeah. And I also remember, and this seemed kind of odd even at the time, as a kid, but there was a few houses where outside of the normal ones where you just go up to their porch and they, either just give you candy or they'd, say something silly and you'd do a little dance or something and they'd give you candy. There were a few houses where they would have the front door like open and they'd be playing like scary music and they'd have lights flashing and stuff. And so they'd you'd go into their house a little bit and they'd, try to scare you or jump out from somewhere.
Okay.
And then they'd give you the candy, which at the time, I think I was more caught up in the, how scary is it going to be? Not in the oh my gosh, I'm walking into someone's house. Maybe I'll never come out of it.
Definitely not going to happen nowadays.
Yeah. And I mean, for what it's worth, the neighborhood seemed now looking back on it, it was a lot of really close neighbors.
Yeah.
And I think they just really wanted to play up the experience as parents of making it fun and, going a little bit over the top with the scary stuff for the kids. And it was a lot of fun, but I think in today's day and age, it just wouldn't fly, but it was fun back then.
Well, nowadays, I think maybe what's changed with that is people do it outside, and they create these elaborate, scary scenes outside their house, and the kids have to walk up and go to the front porch and able to get the candy. And I can tell you, my kids do not like scary stuff. They're not into it. They don't like it. And so many times when we would take them trick-or-treating, they just wouldn't. They're like, I don't care if there's candy up there. I'm like, they just go right on to the next house. They had no interest in it, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, we have a neighbor in the neighborhood just down the street who they had a long winding driveway. You kind of had to, walk really far down. And I think it was the father of the family would sit on the porch every year in some sort of a getup that looked, you could be like, is that a scarecrow? Is it, is it an actual person?
Yeah.
And he was so good at waiting until the kids were reaching for the candy and then he would pop up and just, he got quite a few kids to run away, which, I have mixed feelings on because I'm like, oh, you just scared my kid. That wasn't cool.
That was a jerk thing to do.
So now the kids are older and they don't mind as much.
Yeah. Well, I did, again, I don't know if it's a culture thing or maybe just a time thing. Halloween used to be all about kids. And now I feel like when we've taken the kids trick-or-treating, it's almost an adult reason to sit outside by a fire and get drunk. As you're going around, like I mentioned, there are the houses that would go overboard and
Sure.
crazy things the kid have to walk through to get the candy. But now it feels like it's like a neighborhood block party, and people are, the adults are all drinking around and laughing, and it just seems like it's a different kind of thing nowadays. Whereas when I was a kid, we went out by ourselves, at a certain age. I don't remember adults ever, being around or anything, but I don't know.
Yeah. No, I've seen that sort of shift as well, and I think just overall the commercialism of Halloween has changed too, where, there was always the cool, well, I'll say advertised as cool costumes, but not really cool when you got them out of the box when we were growing up. But now it's like, the Spirit Halloween shops pop up everywhere, and they have these super elaborate everything.
$100 easy.
Yeah, the costumes are elaborate, the animatronic things you put in your front yard. And I mean, I was down this past year with Jack, and it's weird how it'll be thematic from one year to the next.
Yeah.
And, for a while it was like all the Marvel characters and everything.
Yeah.
I didn't see any of that this year.
Really?
It was all like creepy baby dolls and like, just really more like that overly scary,
disturbing
stuff was like the primary thing they were selling. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good.
Well, I wonder if it's a reflection upon our society, Tim.
Cue and the music in the background as we both ponder society.
Which, by the way, if you're looking for a cool playlist during your Halloween party, check out our new playlist at latchkeydads.com
/Halloween 2022.
Thank you.
Or something like that.
Just go to our website.
Yeah.
What were some of the costumes you dressed up as a kid? Do you recall any?
It's funny. I've been thinking back over the last bunch of days, and so many of them I do not remember, but there are a few that definitely stick out. And one year, I don't know if it was my brother and I who came up with these ideas or if it was our parents, but we both had these really large costumes that were made out of cardboard. I went as a van. Nice. A large orange van.
He's not kidding. I've seen the photos.
And I'll put it up on our website. But yeah, I think I was about 8 years old, and I had this giant cardboard van that I held over top of me, and it was just my legs that stuck out on the bottom. And my brother that year was a boombox, so he had this giant, silver spray painted boombox that he was over his shoulders, and his legs were just sticking out of the bottom of it. And, I mean, they were great costumes. I give my parents a lot of credit for.
They were very intricate.
For making them. But yeah.
And if you're wondering what kind of van Tim was rocking, he was rocking those 1970s like A-Team, Scooby-Doo kind of vans. There's a name for them, but there's a name, but I don't know. Like, they don't have windows on the side except that little porthole.
The little moon in the back. Yeah.
Was there a sticker on the back that said, "If this van is rocking, don't come knocking, Tim"?
No, unfortunately not.
No.
Yeah, it did have shag carpeting on the inside.
Nice.
How about you? Any costumes that stick out?
It's funny, for somebody who loved Halloween so much and was like so into it, I could barely remember hardly any of my costumes. And I was thinking, like what you just said, like, nowadays it's tied to the Marvel, you'll be Spider-Man or whatever. Like back then, a lot of my costumes were handmade, as much your van. So I think they were more generic. And I did find a photo of I was a knight. And my dad made the costume out of cardboard and then wrapped it in aluminum foil, and it was definitely a simpler type of costume. Yeah. So I was a knight once, and I remember I was I wanted to be a burglar. Okay. And so I got like the little mask over my eyes, and then a garbage bag as the Halloween bag. But that's about all I can remember, strangely.
I think they were just sort of like the eye masks.
Yes.
They kind of come down
like,
over your cheeks.
Like Robin from Batman and Robin. Yeah.
And there'd be like black or maybe red or something like that. And I feel like a lot of years it was like you start with that and then just put on a flannel shirt and jeans and, something. And
build around it.
A cowboy hat or something. I don't know. But there was only a few other ones that kind of jumped into my memory, and I think I mentioned during the episode where I talked about the clown collection. There was a year where I was a clown. There was a year where I was a construction worker.
Yeah,
We had this. It was a mask that looked like a really wide-faced guy with like stubble.
Okay.
And my dad had he had an actual construction helmet that he had from a job he had been on. He had to wear once. We had the construction helmet and a pair of jeans, jean jacket, and some boots, and there
You're ready to go.
I was a construction worker.
Definitely more like employment related or occupational than nowadays.
Yeah. I think I don't remember if it was my brother or I, but I think one year one of us was like a jungle adventurer. So my dad had
like
like
Indiana
a pith
Jones.
helmet,
Yeah.
you know, and we're like, all right, you got a pith helmet, go with that, you know.
That's it, right? Yeah. It's like, what can you find lying around, like you said, and build off of it? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. How about like in college or maybe as an adult, did you have any good Halloween parties?
I do remember, I think it was one of the first years after I graduated college, and my roommate and I, we went to a party that, one of our friends was having, and it was one of those things where we're like, 5 minutes before we're leaving, okay, we need costumes kind of thing. And I took a white t-shirt and I took some paint and I made the Twisted Sister logo on the t-shirt. I took these black shoes, they were like Doc Martens.
Okay.
And so I took electrical tape and I wrapped them all the way up my legs to make it look like I was wearing like Kiss boots or something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I don't know if we went to like the local like dollar store and we both bought wigs. So I had this really long blonde like woman's hair, and I was like, "Oh, I'm Dee Snider. That is perfect." And I think my roommate was like a used car salesman or something. He had this like weird brown suit on and like a shirt with really big lapels and everything.
Nice,
so,
nice.
Or a collar, and the jacket had lapels.
Yeah. So I remember one time a college party. You're at college, you don't have money, right? And so it was a fraternity party, and like I showed up to the party and there were 4 other brothers, like fraternity brothers, and we all went as freaking lumberjacks. not on purpose, just coincidental. I'm like, oh man, there's another one. Well, because flannel was big, right? With the 90s, and it's like, oh, I could be a lumberjack. Yeah. And that's what everybody thought.
Yeah.
But one guy topped it all because he came with a chainsaw with the blade off, and he like burst into the room. It was awesome.
Yeah. That's funny. You reminded me there was a year I was a lumberjack as well.
See?
Again, just a little bit of cardboard and some aluminum foil. You got yourself an axe. So.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. I think the only other 2 that I can remember from when I was older is there was a year when the movie The Crow came out.
Oh, great movie.
And I thought, I'm going to go as the Crow because I had long hair at the time. And I'm like, this would be perfect.
Yeah.
But I didn't prepare. So I could only find green makeup. All the black had been sold out. So I had the white face with like the green crow makeup on.
Yeah,
so it was like the generic sort of cross between the Crow and the Joker kind of. And then my hair was blonde instead of black. So it just, people were asking me all night, like, what exactly are you supposed to be? But I did scare the crap out of my sister because she was, pretty young at the time. And I jumped into her room with the face makeup on. She's like, why'd you do that?
That's a great movie, by the way.
Yeah, it was one of my favorites in college. I watched it a lot.
So good.
Yeah, it's good. And trying to think if there were any. This was when my wife and I first got married. We'd gone to a party, and I dressed as Johnny Bravo. Remember that cartoon?
I love that cartoon, yeah.
Must have been nice being you looking at me.
He was funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other costumes you remember, things with the kids?
We did a family one of the Avengers, which was kind of fun. We were each a cool Avenger, and that was when they were, when those movies were first coming out, so it was still kind of fun and exciting and unique. How about you?
Yeah, we did. There was a year where we did that as well. I think Lee was Wonder Woman.
Oh, nice.
I think we had found a Wolverine costume for an adult, so I ended up being Wolverine. I think Jack he might have been either Spider-Man or Superman that year because he had multiple years where he was, one of them.
Yeah.
And I think Nora had one. She was Batgirl, I think. It was like a Batman that was all in pink and stuff. Yeah, we had a lot of years that were pretty fun with those because, even the advent of the like muscle bound versions versus, when we were kids,
so
different. It's like a trash bag with a logo on it.
That was so baggy and That's funny.
There were a few I looked up from that, time when we were younger, and they would even put like the face of whatever the character was on the chest, and then in words it would say what it was. I'm like, this is the dumbest costume.
Not at all. What? Yeah. Oh, and those masks would you would sweat instantly and get all wet around the mouth.
Yeah.
Oh, you couldn't see where you were going.
Yeah. They were so sharp at the eyes and the mouth.
They trying to cut me up.
High quality.
Such junk.
Yeah.
I do know William did get that. It's been a really popular costume now, but which I absolutely love. I wish it was in my size. That dinosaur with the little blow up air, like it's got a little I don't know what you call, like air pump in it, and so it's got the little tiny arm there. It's so funny to watch somebody walk around in those costumes. But that's been my favorite.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, Greg.
Hey, Tim.
I think it's probably time for us to do our report card.
Sounds about right. Tim, you said that the Charlie Brown Christmas was called It's Christmas Charlie Brown, but it's actually called a Charlie Brown Christmas.
Right. That was kind of close. But
close enough.
Yeah. We also talked about how Charlie Brown gets rocks for Halloween. So I wanted to see what the origin of that idea was, if that was something that was common back in the 60s. So I found that there was an interview where the animator Bill Mendelsohn said that it was a dispute between him and Charles Schulz, that Charles Schulz thought it would be funny to have him get one rock, and so Mendelsohn was like, oh, come on, that's a little too harsh and cruel. I don't think we should do that. And the more he resisted the idea, the more that Schulz was like enamored with it and really wanted it. And so he said, okay, fine, he'll get 3 rocks.
That's funny that something like that has like an origin.
Yeah. And then, apparently the kids that watched it when it first aired back in the 60s were so sad and upset that Charlie Brown didn't get any candy that they would actually put candy in the mail and send it to the studio. And that happened for many years after when it would re-air. So,
that's so nice.
Yeah, the heart of young kids, feeling for Charlie Brown.
So, what do you want to give us on this report card? What do you think?
Ooh, I don't know. I think A+.
A+. Tim, did you know that listeners should like, review, and subscribe to the Latch-Key Dads podcast?
No. But now I know.
No,
Knowing is half the battle.